Hello and welcome to Outsiders Weather and the Skeptics Ice Age Watch. Here is a typical climate change rally in Canberra. As you can see from the earnest faces of the children and their parents, or is it perhaps the teachers? Probably. They passionately believe that the planet is heating up every year thanks to global warming. So it must have come as quite a surprise when Canberra finished last month with not the hottest, but the coldest. The coldest April since temperatures began in 1952. Luckily, the good folk of the ACT were able to huddle indoors and keep warm thanks to being plugged in to the now New South Wales grid, which relies entirely on, or almost entirely, 95% on fossil fuels. And despite the snow season not due for several weeks, the freezing white stuff is already falling in the Victorian and New South Wales alpine regions, where temperatures could plummet to 10 degrees Celsius below May averages. A Bureau of Meteorology forecaster said the freezing cold weather was unusual this early in autumn. So I asked climate expert Sir Thomas Jones just how unusual.
It's not unusual, it happens every day. No matter what you say, you find it happen all the time.
Yes, cold weather is increasingly common these days. And in fact, it is only unusual if you happen to think that, thanks to farting oysters and tradies' utes, the planet is warming up. But it's certainly not unusual if you recognise, as NASA has for several years, that we are in the middle of a grand solar minimum, meaning a flatlining of sunspot activity, which in turn means a cooler planet. No surprise, therefore, that the cold weather isn't just blasting the southeast, it's bringing sub-zero temperatures and frost to parts of outback Queensland too. Thargomindah recently broke the 1989 record for the coldest April day. Birdsville beat its 2015 record, and the Ballera gas fields had their coldest April day since monitoring began. Speaking of old records, it's time to talk about the Doors records.
Riders on the storm, riders on the storm, into this house we're born, into this world we're thrown.
No, not those Doors records. I'm talking about the William Dawes records of colonial climate at Sydney Cove. The earliest settlers were sticklers for science and insisted on accurately recording the weather in the new colony of New South Wales. Lieutenant William Dawes kept a meticulous journal recording wind direction and speed, cloud cover, temperature, rainfall and dewfall, all taken from his observatory at what is now Dawes Point, at almost the exact spot where today's Sydney Observatory stands. However, Dawes fell out with Governor Phillip, interestingly, over an incident to do with the poor treatment of Aborigines, and Dawes returned to England, taking his readings with him. It wasn't until 1977 that Dawes's missing journal was located in the library of the Royal Society in London, giving us access to a vital piece of our colonial climate history. Dawes's weather measurements ran from the 14th of September 1788 until the 6th of December 1791 and comprise 182 handwritten pages of weather records. A weather record with comparable detail for this period anywhere in the world is almost impossible to find. Then, in 2009, an Australian and British team of researchers analysed the data from Dawes's journal, cross-verifying it with other data sources. Remarkably, they concluded Dawes records are in line with modern-day measurements taken from Sydney Observatory Hill. Here we see Dawes's readings, the red circles, compared with the Bureau of Meteorology data for the entire period from 1859 to 2018. They're the green dots. And wham, bomb, thank you, ma'am, the temperature averages for both periods are almost identical. In other words, Dawes records were, not surprisingly, extremely accurate. And here's the kicker. Remember how the lovies kept telling us that the recent summer was the hottest and the driest summer on record, and the bushfires and drought were all due to climate change? Well, wait for it. Last summer was actually cooler than the summer accurately recorded by William Dawes back in 1790. So, obviously, along with racism, white supremacy, colonialism, homophobia, transphobia, and a bunch of unruly rum-sodden convicts, the First Fleet must have also brought global warming to these fair shores. And finally, in the US, a bitter Arctic blast has settled into the northeast this weekend with the possibility of snow only weeks before the Northern Hemisphere summer officially begins. So I guess Seals and Croft will have to wait a little bit longer than normal this year to be blown away by any summer breezes.
Summer breeze makes me feel fine, going through the jasmine in my mind. Summer breeze makes me feel